Hi. Good morning, y'all. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's been a moment. It's been a while. It's definitely been a while. How is everybody doing? I know usually when it comes to my schedule reactions, it's like a pre-recorded video and then I just post it and you guys just indulge in it. But today I just wanted to do a live. I wanted to try something different. So first of all, before I proceed to talk about what the plans are for today, let me just go ahead and do a quick mic check, okay? Let me know in the comment section if you can hear me. I'm just going to try and move some things around just to see if I can't be heard. So good afternoon, Angeline. Welcome to the live. So let me just move some things around real quick and then let me know if I'm heard. All right, so let me know if I'm heard. I'm just going to try some things out. Okay, so I can be heard. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's switch this out. Perfect. Switch this out. Let's see. I'm still heard. Okay, so the sound is working. Okay, good. Okay. All right, let me do one more test and then all right, one more test so that we can see where we are, what's going on. It's gonna be a second, okay? So just I'm coming. Okay, give me a second. All right, so I am heard, so everything is good. Perfect. Thank you all for making it to today's live, y'all. Thank you. I can take this off for a second. But thank you all for making it today. As the thumbnail or the title of the live indicates, I will be reacting to my schedule for May. If you're new here, my name is Princella. I am a flight attendant working with a major U.S. airline company. And if you know who the airline is, you know who they are. There's no point going back and forth with that conversation at this point. But I am here to react to my schedule for the month of May. Our schedules are typically released on the 16th of the month prior. So it's already out. I've already seen it. I've already made a few changes, but I just like to walk you guys through the process as in what I asked for, among other things. So the agenda for today, essentially, obviously, to check out my schedule, to share it with you all. And then also I'm going to talk about the things that I bid for the month of May. And I would follow through by talking about what I received, what I got. So essentially the way the whole process works is that you ask for stuff and then you're given stuff. So there's a whole math and method behind it. But the other thing that I will be talking about are the changes that I've made to my schedule so far, because you all know that once schedules are released, they are never permanent, especially being as junior as I am. I don't get what I want. So since I don't get what I want, I have to work with what I have. And by doing so, I have to make some changes and move some things around. So that's where we are. The other thing also that will be talking about are my final thoughts with regards to moving forward. So yes, let's jump right into it. Once again, if you're new here, just say hi, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I don't know what you're waiting for. Like the video, and if you do have any questions while I'm going over everything, feel free to drop it in the comment section. I would definitely go back to them and just read them out and try and respond to as many comments as possible. That being said, what was I even going to say? I already forgot. This is impromptu. Okay, I'm trying something different here. Work with me, okay? But if you're also new here, I do have a full playlist of all my schedule reactions in the description box below. I have a link where I have a full playlist where I talk about my schedule from the very first month that I got on the line till to date. So please check those out as well. So let's move on to the first thing. First of all, I do want to talk about a few things with regards to our May schedule. So as I said when I started this video, our schedules are released on the 16th on the month prior, my base, because depending on which base you are, it might be a different date. But in general, it starts from the 16th and then it rolls down from there. So essentially, the schedule for May was released or made available to access by the flight attendants or the employees the 16th of April, essentially. And when it comes to bidding or requesting for stuff, or with regards to when I say bidding for our schedule, essentially we have a whole platform where you go into, and then you go in and request for stuff. So you go in and type in or request for certain layovers, the time you want your trips to start, where you want your trips to go, how many days you want your trips to be, among other things. So there's so many nuances and so many other things that you can ask for when it comes to your schedule. This is why people always argue that our schedules are flexible, and to a large extent, we kind of sort of have some control over our schedule, even though there are some factors that play into all this, because depending on how junior you are, you might not get the requests that you might make. Depending on how senior you are, you might get all the requests that you ask for. So that's how that works. But that being said, I know I've had several questions about how many hours we can work or how many hours we're scheduled, among other things. So that question has two answers to it. The first part is that by default, at the start of every month, there are projected hours that we are expected to work for the month. And that number is set based on operational needs. So if based on the analytics, the business notices that, okay, for the month of May, we're going to need each flight attendant to work about 79 to 80 hours, plus or minus a variance, then that's what that number is going to be set at. So that's based on operational needs and whatever the business feels is proper or appropriate for all of us. So that's more so like your guaranteed hours for that month. For the month of May, in this case, the guaranteed hours was 79 hours plus or minus 7 hours. What that implies is that the maximum amount of hours that the company is guaranteeing me for the month of May is 79 plus 7 hours, which brings it to a total of 86 hours. So you know how a typical 9 to 5 would have 160 hours full-time for an employee that's full-time? For us, for the month of May, it's going to be 86. That's the maximum the company is guaranteeing me by default. Whether I ask for more hours or lesser hours, by default, it's 86, which is a 79 plus the variance. The minimum the company is guaranteeing me that it will schedule me for would then be 79 hours minus the variance, which is 7 hours, which will put us at 72 hours. So you know how you have a typical job where outside of the aviation industry or as a flight attendant, where if you're part-time, you're working maybe 20 hours a week, which brings you to about 80 hours a month, whatnot. With us, the minimum for the month of May was then going to be 79 minus 7 hours, which put us at 72 hours. So that being said, that's the question that I was talking about. Even though the default amount of hours is going to be 79 plus or minus the variance, you still have the ability to ask for more hours. Just as any other job which offers overtime or extra hours, you can ask for it or pick up shift or whatever. I think that's how they say it. Yes. You can do the same with this, and you can do it at two different points. before schedules are released, in the process of you asking for your layovers, your trips, or whatnot, you can also ask for more hours. Or once schedules are released, you can pick up all the extra trips that people might post for drop, or the system might need coverage for. So that's the way with that. So you can ask for more hours. So all of you who have been asking me how many hours you can work, and if you can work more hours, yes, you can. However, the first part of working more hours, if you want to work more hours, if you decide to ask for it before schedules are released or when you're asking for how your schedule should be, the maximum you can request for is up to 95 hours, plus or minus the variance that I talked about for that month, which is 7 hours. So assuming the month of May, I'm feeling good, right? I feel like I want to get more trips. I want to work more hours. I can, while I'm requesting for how I want my schedules to be, I can tell the system that, hey, your girl is feeling good for May, so I want more hours. So essentially, give me up to 95 hours, plus or minus the variance. What that implies is that the system will try as much as possible to give me the maximum amount of hours, or out of that maximum that I'm asking for, the minimum it can give me out of that will be the 95 minus 7, and the maximum will be 95 plus 7. So that being said, it's all based on your seniority. So if for whatever reason, people more senior than you end up asking for, let's say, high credit, not high credit, but high schedule value or more hours, then potentially, if it can't give you, it might not give you. The same applies to asking for very low hours. So moving on to the low hours, assuming that, let's say, you decide that, okay, for the month of May, you're not trying to work too much. You don't want to do the most. You have kids, you have a lot of school activities going on, so you don't want to do the most, okay? What you can do before schedules are released while you're bidding for the stuff that you want is that you can tell the system that, hey, give me the minimum amount of hours you can offer me. And for us, the minimum amount of hours you can ask for is 45 hours, which is still plus or minus the variance. So essentially, the lowest of the lowest you can get would be 45 minus 7 hours, or the highest of the lowest that you can get. Trust me, it's too many words, but just follow me. It would be 45 plus 7, okay? Which will put you at about 52 hours, okay? All right. So moving on from there, the other thing also is that for the month of May, was that based on my seniority, okay, as itty bitty as my seniority might be, not me being dramatic, but as little as my seniority is at my base currently, and if you guys are wondering, I am Seattle based. We have several bases across the world or across the country, and I'm based in Seattle. And at my base right now, when I looked at the numbers for the month of May, it became apparent that based on where my position is, my seniority at my base, because we have two types of seniority. Your seniority in the company as a whole, or in the industry or the department that I am as a whole, and then my seniority at my base. So at my base, based on the numbers, it appeared that I was not going to be on reserve for the month of May as well. If you guys watched my previous schedule reaction video, I was off of reserve in April. And that was great, y'all. It was great. It was great. It was great. The flexibility that I got from not being on reserve was amazing. I loved it. It's nothing magical or special or anything, but it's just the fact that knowing that I was no longer on reserve. So that was amazing. All right, so when I looked at our numbers as well, it became apparent that I was no longer going to be on reserve for the month of May as well. So that was nice to see. All right, so now that I'm done with that, actually make your way in, drop any questions that you may have about our schedule or even becoming a flight attendant. I am here for you. You guys know I pop in and out from time to time. So catch me when you can, okay? All right, so let me know what you guys are doing as well. What's going on today? Today's what, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Okay, Wednesday. All right, we never know what day it is. All right, so moving on to the other part of this video where I do want to talk about the things that I bid for May. So when you're bidding for stuff, you have to figure out what's most important to you and prioritize it from there. Okay, so for me, I started off with my days off. As you all would notice from all the times that I've been bidding for my schedule, I always try and experiment. Every single month, I try something different. So this time around, I decided to change the days off that I've been asking for. So I bid for my days off to be Friday to Monday, which was 4 days out of the week. So essentially, I wanted to work 3 days on and 4 days off. And I wanted my days of work to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the middle of the month. The other thing that I bid for is flight leave. Once again, disclaimer, I am not against working flight leave. I truly am not against working flight leave. I've done it before. I actually enjoyed it. But by default, I avoid requesting or I avoid trips with flight leave position. I just put it in my bid. So essentially what I'm asking for is that if you're going to schedule me on with any trip at all, give me regular position and not flight lead or lead position. The third thing that I bid for was to avoid domestic trips. I've explained this 1,001 times. My airline does both international and domestic, and typically our international trips from my base, because it depends on the base you're at. From my base, our international trips are high credit. All our international trips are 20 hours and above. So I put avoid domestic trip just to another way to butter and sway my request for asking for high credit trips. The other thing that I bid for was my reserve start date or my 8-day start date. Yes, I did mention earlier that I was going to be off of reserve based on the numbers. However, anything can happen. Until schedules are released, anything can happen. So just because the numbers were showing at a point that I was going to be off of reserve does not mean that maybe towards the last minute, operational needs might call for more people to be on reserve, and I might get snagged into that bunch, okay? So just to cover me and everything else, I still went ahead to request for my reserve start date, and that's a big thing. No, if you're a new flight attendant and you're seeing that the numbers are projecting that you're not going to be on reserve in the month coming, still request for a reserve start date because you never know what might happen, okay? So I did request for my reserve start date. I essentially wanted, if I had to get reserve, I wanted it to be between the 1st to the 8th of the month, nothing beyond that. And then as usual, I bid to avoid Atlanta. I did not want to fly through Atlanta. I did not want to lay over in Atlanta. I wanted no parts of Atlanta. If you're wondering why, please watch my previous schedule reaction video. We're not here to go into all that, all that juicy stuff, okay? The other thing that I also bid for, and I did differently this month was, or for the month of April, for the month of May, was that I bid for specific layovers. So I bid for Hawaii, Cancun, and then I also wanted a long JFK or New York layover as well. Because I went to Hawaii recently and I enjoyed the tropical feeling and the experience. I love Hawaii. Every time I go to Hawaii, I feel like I'm in Ghana. I think it's because of the cultural, the cultural aesthetic and the fact that the weather, it just reminds me so much of my home country, which is Ghana. So I bid for Hawaii, and then I wanted to go to Cancun as well because I haven't been there. And then I bid for New York because I just want to go to New York, you know? New York is a vibe. I love New York. It's fast paced, but I love it because I love it for the chaos, how chaotic New York can be. I love it for that reason, you know? So I bid for those layovers. And then the other thing that I bid for, as usual, are high credit trips. So high credit 3 days, so nothing below. It had to be 19 hours or greater. And then for my 2-day trips, I wanted 12 hours or greater. And then for my 1-day trips, I wanted 7 hours or greater as well. So if we're going to be outside, it needs to be worth our time, essentially. I know I asked for a lot of stuff, but I promise you, I'm low maintenance, y'all. What the list of stuff that I'm bidding for, I am low maintenance. Okay, you have not seen other people's package. Okay, the last but not the least thing that I bid for, well, not the last. Okay, I have another one, but yes, the other thing that I bid for was a schedule value. Remember earlier on in this live when I talked about how many hours we were projected by default to get scheduled, and then how many hours you can potentially go ask for. What I did was that for the month of May, I asked for 45 hours. If you watch my April schedule reaction video, I asked for more hours. I asked for 95 hours in that month. For this month, I went back to asking for 45 hours because what became apparent, and as I've always said, this whole schedule request thing is an experience and you just experiment with it, right? So last month was the first month that April was the first month that I ever asked for more hours beyond what I was either going to be by default scheduled for. So once I did it, I noticed that my schedule became packed and it was harder for me to move things around. And the reason behind that is because being as junior as I am, potentially I might not get the trips that I want. Give me a quick second, y'all. Not me not putting my computer on charge. This is not the way. This is not the way, okay? This is not the way. But yes, so the reason behind all this is that my schedule became packed, so it was harder for me to move things around. So my plan for May moving forward was that I would rather have fewer items on my schedule so that I can swap and pick up and move things around as I want. All right. So give me 1 second, y'all. I will be right back because I need to grab my charger. Oh my God. Okay. Got that sorted out. But yes, I was talking about my schedule value. So for the month of May, I actually asked for 45 hours. So I did not want anything more than 45 hours plus or minus the variance. The last thing that I asked for was minimum rest of 12 hours. So the reason for asking for a minimum rest of 12 hours is for me to avoid being scheduled 6 days straight or continuously. It's a way for you to get a break in between. So essentially, let's say I bid for stuff and I was gonna get let's say only 2-day trips on my calendar, right? When you bid for minimum rest of 12 hours, it forces the system to break, to give you at least at a minimum 1 day off in between your trips. So if the system was gonna give me 2-day trips back to back, then essentially me bidding for minimum rest of 12 hours will stop that. If the system, because if you work with my airline, we get our reserve 6 days. We get 6 days of reserve every month. And you can either have it in 2 sets of 3 days or a full 6-day block. Me bidding for minimum rest of 12 hours essentially forces the system to give me at least at a minimum 1 day off in between that reserve set. So that's a way this is a way or something you can bid for to avoid being scheduled 6 days straight. All right. So that being said, if you have any questions, if you're making your way into this live, I am talking about my May flight attendant schedule. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the comment section below. Also, your questions does not necessarily have to pertain to flight attendant schedule. It can be anything related to the flight attendant job as a whole. And then also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I don't know what you're waiting for, okay? I do not know what you're waiting for. If you're going to be here, you might as well support the channel, okay? Not me being dramatic. But yes, that's where we are. So now that I'm done with that, let's go ahead and talk about what I received, okay? And with that, let me pull up my schedule real quick. All right. So I'm showing you all my schedule. Let me know if you can see it real quickly. Before I go to talk about that, let me just check the comment section to see what's going on. Any questions? Not Ricky trying to play with me. All right, Ricky has a question. Oh, she wants to. Of course, Ricky. I want to be a senior mama, okay? She wants to be a senior mama. No 8 days, weekends off. Go for it, girl. Yes, I did. And honestly, I was able to hold it. So as you can see, Ricky, I was able to hold weekends off the entire month of May. And y'all, I am super junior. Like I am a year in. I hit my 1-year anniversary in March 13th. So I was able to hold weekends off, and I also got the schedule value that I was asking for, as you all can see. So based on what you can see here, let's see, out of my bids, the days off that I wanted, I was granted those. Also asking for flight lead, all the trips that I got assigned were regular positions, so we love that. And I did not get reserved, so my reserve start date was upheld in a way because I did not get reserved at all. And I did get the schedule value that I requested for, which is 45 hours or plus or minus the 7. And the minimum rest of 12 hours, I did get that too because none of my trips were scheduled back to back. So this is what I got, y'all. And I know when we talk about our schedules being flexible, it kind of, to a large extent, seem like how flexible can it be? As you can see, this is how flexible it can be. I only got 3 trips assigned, 2 3-day trips, and then 1 2-day trip. So let's talk about the hourly value of these trips, y'all. This is why in my thumbnail I said worst trips ever. It's because of this, y'all. It's because of this. As you can see in green, my my hours for the trips were very, very low. If you're a regular on my channel, you know that my 3-day trips for the most part has always been 20 hours, 19 hours or more. And I mean, the last time I had a 2-day trip, it was, I think, like 12 hours or 11 hours or something like that. But if you're a regular here, you know that my 3-day trips at the minimum have been 19 or more. So to be getting 3-day trips that are worth 16 hours and below, it's kind of off-putting and weird to me because I'm not used to it. However, what I will say is that the rest time or the layover times on these 3-day trips were actually pretty good. So for somebody who's looking for like pretty long layovers, this is perfect for you. But for me, whenever I ask for my schedule, my perspective or my thought of the whole process is give me the highest credit trips as possible so I can easily swap out of them or drop them. So I can pick up exactly what I want. So having these trips, my 2-day trip, for example, was 10 hours and 10 minutes. My other 3-day trip was 16 and 20, and then the last one was 16 hours and 17 minutes. So those were kind of off. Even the 2-day trip was too low because at my base, we have 1-day trips that are worth 10 hours. So getting a 2-day trip, that's 10 hours is kind of not, I'm not really feeling it. And the other thing also is that 2-day trip that I have between the 7th to partially the 9th is going to Atlanta. So it's actually, we have a 1-day trip that's the same thing. It's 1 flight to Atlanta and then 1 flight back within a day. However, the only difference is that with this one, I have a layover in there. That's why it becomes a 2-day trip instead of a 1-day trip. So my request to not go to Atlanta was not upheld. That's the first thing. The other thing also is that avoiding domestic trips. I was given domestic trips only, so I didn't get that either. And then I didn't get any of the layovers that I requested for. And in terms of high credit trips, I did not get the high credit 3 days I was looking for. And the 2-day trip, I did not get the 12 hours or more credit 2-day trips that I was asking for. But I did get my schedule value, which was 45 hours plus or minus 7. And as you can see, the total amount of hours that I got assigned was 42 hours and 47 minutes. So that's that. And then the minimum rest of 12 hours was upheld as well. So in general, essentially when schedules were released, this is what I got, y'all. This is all I got. So imagine if you have kids. Imagine if you have some activities or some engagements that requires you to have certain amount of time off. It is possible. Remember, this is all based on your base, and then also business needs and your seniority. If I could not hold this at my seniority, I would not have gotten all these things. So keep that in mind. So moving on from there, total hours that I was scheduled was 42 hours and 40 minutes, y'all. The total amount of hours that I got for work was like the total number of hours of somebody working for 1 week. And then I got 22 days off out of the month. 22 days off out of the month. Collectively, if I had to put all the number of days that I was working together, I was working about 8.5 days out of the month, y'all, when schedules were released. This is amazing. All right, so moving on from there. So once schedules were released, like I said, our schedules are never fixed. You have the ability to move things around and swap things around and do anything you want to do to be as creative with your schedule as possible. Also, one thing that I forgot to mention was that our bid period was between May 2nd to June 1st, not June 2nd. I don't know why there's June 2nd there, but it's just supposed to be June 1st, y'all. But that's the bid period for that. It's from May 2nd to June 1st. And which means that whatever schedules or trips I can get will be between that period. But once schedules were released, First of all, I was able to swap out of, I'm not sure if I swapped out of them or if I posted them for drop and somebody picked them up, but it happened so quickly that I can't even remember what I did to them. But I got rid of everything that I was scheduled previously when schedules were released. And then I picked up a few trips and swapped into a few trips. So as you can see right now, after moving things around, I ended up having 4 trips on my calendar. In March, I worked only 2-day trips and one-day trip, and I loved the experience. I did not feel as exhausted and tired as I felt when I did 3-day trips. But then again, the 3-day trips that I was doing in the past were 20 hours, 21, 19, and those can be exhausting because typically those don't have long layover rest. So you're like working, it's like a worker. It's just going to work you. You're going to make money for your time, but it's exhausting. It's not like our international trips, which have like 26, 27, 30 something layovers, 30 something hours layovers. So I was getting exhausted from working those 3-day trips. I feel like every time I work a 3-day trip, I needed like 3 days to recover. So so I decided to try something different in March where I worked only 2-day trips. So I worked a 2-day trip and I had 1 day off. Then I worked another 2-day trip and I had 2 days off. And that felt good. I wasn't as exhausted at the end of the month or after every trip. So I decided to keep that vibe going. So what I did for the month of May again was that I swapped out of the 3-day trips that I got rid of my 2-day trip going to Atlanta, and then picked up other trips. So I picked up a 2-day trip between the 5th to the 6th, which was worth 14 hours. The high credit 2-day trip. I'm actually working the same trip in April. I did do the same trip in April, and it was actually pretty good. It was exhausting, but it was kind of worth my time in a way for a 2-day trip because we do have 3-day trips that are also worth 14 hours, y'all. So this 2-day trip is worth 14 hours. And then I picked up another 2-day trip between the 13th, and the release time is after midnight. I think it's at like 12:36 a.m. So that's why part of it is on the 15th, and it kind of looks like a 3-day trip, but it's because my release time is after midnight, which is like a few minutes after midnight. And that 2-day trip is worth 15 hours and 30 minutes. Remember, I had a 3-day trip that was worth 16 hours. This 2-day trip is worth what? Almost 16 hours. It's 15 and a half hours. So that's a pretty high credit 2-day trip. Then moving on, I was able to pick up this 1-day trip, which is worth 10 hours and 13 minutes. So that's a really good use of my time for that day. So I love that. Then after that, that's on the 17th. And then on the 18th to the 19th, I have another 2-day trip, which is worth 13 hours and 54 minutes, so about 14 hours. Currently, my calendar looks very, very lean right now because I'm actually not trying to do the most at the moment. And for the month of May, one thing I noticed was that we did not have like a lot of good credit trips, or the good credit trips that were gotten by people, they're not trying to get rid of it because our swap board and our open time, it looks really lean right now because last month I was able to get like really good 1-day trips, but this time around it's hard to find any good trips or whatever. So I'm leaving my calendar as bare as it is because my plan is to actually pick up either last minute or I do have a few appointments or other engagements that I do have to do. So I'm just keeping my calendar open to be able to figure out how to place those meetings or those appointments, and then I know what and when I can pick up. The other thing also is that for the 2-day trip that I have on the 18th, as good as the credits are for that 2-day trip, I still want to swap out of it for something else. So that's the reason why I have it posted for drop right now. So if you're watching this video and you are at my base, or even if you're not at my base, but you work with my airline and you're willing to work this 2-day trip on the 18th, the 18th to the 19th, please pick it up. Pick it up for your girl, okay? I'm just this is a public service, like this is a cry out, okay? Pick up that trip for your girl. But yeah, so this is what I have right now, y'all. This is what I have right now. Those are the hourly value of these trips. And as I showed you all, when schedules were released, my total amount of hours was sitting at 42 hours and 47 minutes and 22 days off. After swapping and picking up the trips that I wanted, it brought me to 53 hours and 37 minutes with 23 days off. So as you would notice, let's go back to this. I had 22 days off with 42 hours of work. However, after moving things around, I ended up with 53 hours and 37 minutes of work, but with 23 days off. So you see the importance of having high credit trips or trips that are high value so you can maximize your time. Clearly, I'm working more hours after swapping things around, yet I ended up with more days off compared to earlier. So sometimes those low credit trips with very good layovers might be worth it if you're looking forward to the layover. But if you're looking forward to make more money for your time, then you might potentially want to aim for high credit trips to maximize the number of days of work that you're doing or minimize the number of days of work that you're doing, but then with high credit and high value, making money for your time. All right. So let me check the comment section to see if there are any questions or requests. Okay. All right. So moving on from there, let's talk about the monetary value of my schedule right now. All right. So after moving everything around with the 4 trips that I have, the 2-day trip that I have between the 5th to the 6th, that's worth $598.33. And the other 2-day trip that I have on the 13th to the 14th, and then partially the 15th, is worth $672.82. And then that 1-day trip I have on the 17th is worth $402.80. And lastly, the 2-day trip that I have on the 18th to the 19th, the monetary value of that is sitting at $588.19, y'all. So with the 4 trips that I have total, I will be projected to earn $2,262.14. Remember, this does not include boarding pay. The way our boarding pay works is that because in this industry, we're not typically paid for boarding pay. When the pay system was built, that was not included. So our boarding pay literally has to be manually inputted after you work the trips. So it's not projected or it's not added to the projection of your income for that month based on the trips that you're likely to work. So our boarding pay has to be manually inputted, and it's inputted when the trips are worked. So as and when you work the flight, that's when your boarding pay is inputted for you. So this does not include boarding pay. It does not also include any sales made on any of the flight. It does not include any additional income that I'm going to earn throughout the month as well. So this is where I'm sitting at 53 hours and 37 minutes with a monetary value of $2,262.14 with 23 days off. So if I wanted to take a trip like I'm planning to do so, I'm still not sure where I am with regards to that. This is where my days off would be. And then this is what my monetary value is. So yeah, this is it, y'all. This is it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I am almost done. This is not meant to be a long live. My final thoughts is that overall, my schedule was okay. I got the days off that I wanted. I did get the schedule value that I was requesting for, so that's great. But then the only thing is that I do schedule. It's not a permanent situation. There's a lot of flexibility that does come with this job, and I love it for it. So it's been great so far. And yeah, to end it all, I do want to say that a year into this job, I love it. It's been great. And you all will hear me say it like 1,001 times. And when I say it's been great, I say it's been great, y'all, because I've worked in several industries. I've worked with several companies, even just being here in this country, moving here like 6 years ago. And one thing I will say is that this is the only job that I've had or career that I've had so far that has been worth my time, that I've actually enjoyed. Of course, you have to do it correctly. If you don't do it correctly or start off the journey correctly, you will not reap the benefit of the job. And the pay only gets better in terms of the longer you stay with the company, the higher your pay gets, the more your pay increases. I literally just worked with one individual recently, and just recently on one of my trips, and they will show you evidence of how the payouts can be for you depending on how senior you become. And when I've said that we flight attendants are out here making 14,000, 10,000, 12,000 a month, it is possible. And honestly, somebody sitting somewhere might think that, oh, that's a high number on one hand, and we don't, why are we earning such an amount? Think about the risk involved with their job. Think about how many hours we are away from our homes, you know? And if you're fortunate to be at a base where I am, where you make a lot of money for your time, then it's kind of like balances out. But the more you put in your time, the more you make money, essentially. And that should be the case anywhere. Well, what's the point of working with a company for 10, 12, 13, 15, 20 years and still making subpar money? There should be some incentive in staying and being loyal and remaining with the company and giving your time and effort to that company. And that is a pay increase. I mean, we can get more because technically we deserve more, but where we are right now, at least with my airline, it is good. It is worth it. It's worth the time. So if you're thinking of becoming a flight attendant, yes, please consider my airline. I know we're not hiring right now, but just keep your eye out, okay? Just keep your eye out. And thank you all for joining me for this live. I know it was impromptu, but yes, your girl is sitting at 53 hours for the month with $2,262 as a monetary value with 23 days off. I do plan on picking up more trips, or I might not pick up more trips. It just depends on how I'm feeling, okay? Don't judge me. But thank you all for coming through, and I will see you all in my next live. Bye-bye.